Hello again.
Hi, Lauren.
So, I thought I'd ask you a few questions just about how you would describe yourself as a painter, who you are, how you've ended up where you are, and why you do things how you do. It's the most open question ever, but how would you say you got to being the person you know for being now as a painter?
I think a lot of the way I paint has just come from years of experimenting. I think not being afraid to try things. I learned to paint, started when I was a teenager, back before there was any internet.
Yeah.
So very much painting in splendid isolation. None of my friends were really into painting miniatures. I tended to paint their miniatures for them. So I was the only painter in my group.
Yeah.
Just sort of figuring things out for myself. I was quite arty-farty anyway. I was heading for art college, so I was familiar with paints and brushes and the materials. And I think just being willing to try different things out, which is very much still how I like. You know, I hope I'm constantly evolving in a very slow, gentle way.
Do you approach each project with I'm going to try and push this aspect?
I do that. I do like to set myself a specific goal on a model. Very often I will look at a model and I think, well, that one's going to have you know, a lot of a certain colour on it or something. Or I may actually say, right, on this model, on one model, I might want to use a lot of black. Black was the colour I started off all black base coats way back in the 80s. Went through a period where I just stopped using it, and then I thought, well, you know, there's no real reason for that actually. It's just a habit. Yeah. So I said, right, I'm gonna just get used to using a bit of black again. Over the last year, I've been using a lot of yellow because again, that was a colour I hadn't used, or it may be a technique. I've focused a lot on texture because for years and years I was all about smoothness. Yeah, I was all about achieving as smooth as an 80s painter, 80s into the 90s painter. That's very much my roots. It was all about achieving that perfectly smooth look and finish. And
even while stippling.
Yes, actually, because I was stippling back then as well. Yeah. That was about the contrast, though. Yeah. It was. I hadn't really thought about that at the time.
You just did it.
I just did it. The stippling was a technique that very much just somehow evolved. I did a lot of pen and ink drawings. Yeah. And that was very similar. I used a stippling technique to shade that. Okay. And I think I then just took that and applied that to the model painting. And around 1990, it sort of crystallised for me in model painting, and in that I would do a lot of stippling and then glaze over it. Okay.
Which you're still doing to this day.
I still do to this day. Yes.
I've refined.
Yeah. A lot of the same techniques. To be honest, it's playing with combinations of techniques, because any one technique on its own will only get you so far on a model. A monoculture of painting isn't going to look great. Yeah. On a figure, so actually getting that contrast. I often think if you have a smooth area next to a textured area, by contrast they make each other look better, and each looks more of what it is. But it's really not reminding myself not to be afraid to try things. It's quite easy in this hobby to get stuck in a rut, to do what to stay in your safe zone. It's comfortable, and why shouldn't it be? Because it's hopefully we all paint for pleasure. But it can be quite exciting. Every now and again, I'll paint a model and I'll feel that's something's happened on that one. I've moved into a new area, or I feel I've just upped my game a little increments. I've got my highlighting really nice on that. I've got a rust effect that I'd never tried before. It's little things. It's not trying to sort of do it all in one go. It's just being aware that you can always do that.
Cool. So then that brings me on to what have you got on your table now, or what are you thinking of having on your table now? Perhaps is a better question.
Working on a troll, which is fun. He's for a workshop. He's going to be lots of smooth and textured areas in contrast. The big thing that's coming is a revamp of my old Nurgle Predator model from 1990. I thought the 30-year anniversary is coming up, and I think it'd just be really fun and interesting as a personal project to revisit that. Yep. It was one of my mates actually said to me, well, why don't you do this? And I thought, oh no, and thought about it for a while, and of course the idea was there, and I thought actually it would be a really enjoyable project. But to take that concept of a tank which has become possessed by a demon, and now the demon is beginning to sort of emerge out through the tank, and the tank is sort of morphing into this creature, this fusion of demon and machine, which when I did it in 1990 was still a fairly new idea.
It hadn't made its way into like now it's embedded into,
exactly
into the actual models themselves.
That's it. Well, this is what's so interesting as well, because obviously some of the kits now have these elements of air, and really focusing on my sculpting skills, which I never fully mastered, but before I came back to painting, I'd experimented with sculpting, but revamping those to actually sculpt the head of my demon. I considered all sorts of ways of chickening out of that, and thought, no, that's really, to be true to the spirit of the project, I need to sculpt that head. So broke out the green stuff, and then creating this fusion of machine and organism, but also trying to make something that's more dynamic than the old model, because that's always when I look at that old model now, he's incredibly static, and basic is the word that springs to mind.
How did you pitch to that? Because you're being fairly self-referential here. How did you pick the level of homage that you're happy with?
With great difficulty is the honest answer to that, and that is very much something that I'm working through. I mean, I spent a lot of time just thinking about it, because initially I was going to reuse the same Predator kit. Brought the kit, had it ready, and it just started assembling it, but it didn't feel right. I mean,
looks at its age, or
partly it was an older kit. It didn't have the organic feel I wanted. I wanted a little bit more of the organic and the mechanical fusing and merging and morphing,
without having to completely sculpt it yourself.
Exactly, and I felt that original tank is very boxy. On my first Predator, it's literally just the turret has got a face sculpted onto it, so it becomes the head with the arms coming out the sides, and it works. But it's basic, and it's just sort of sat on top of the tank, and the tank's got a few pustules and a few splits and things in it. Whereas I want to try and be a little bit bolder and a bit more dynamic, and we'll see how that works. It's an ongoing process as I sort of work on it.
You always put a lot of thought into your work, and I'm sure you'll be blogging whether they're things that manifest or don't.
I will indeed. Yes, I think sometimes it's important to share the mistakes. And the changes of decision, because
the ones that don't happen,
and that's part of the process too, because it isn't I don't set out with this perfect master plan that I then follow through and get exactly. That's only ever happened to me once. I've really had an idea for a model and seen it through, and the model in my hand at the end of the day is pretty much what I imagined, which was my gut rot spume. Because that one just clicked.
It worked.
Everything else I've done, yes, I've had a plan, I've had an idea. I think you should have one when you start. You should think about it before you do it. So, consider what you're going to do, what colours you're going to do, what the approach is going to be. But be willing to evolve it and adapt to circumstances. You can get better ideas. Some things won't work, some things will work better than you thought. Working with colours, that can really shift and change. Introducing one new colour to a familiar range of colours can totally alter what you're doing. So be flexible.
Amazing. All right, well, if people want to follow David, we will link his blog and his various social media posts below, and you can follow him as one of our artists.